Platinum, the last of the real water cooler talk shows on YouTube. We are back. Texas knocks off Michigan in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl in what was probably the best bowl game, at least for me, the most fun to watch bowl game of the year, aside from a couple playoff games here and there. But a great performance from Texas in a matchup of two blue bloods. And Kyle was wrong. He picked Michigan to win. Kyle's got dual allegiances, and Texas came out on top. So we're going to break that game down and we're gonna just basically just do our parting thoughts on the season. Give our last, uh, our last statements and thoughts, and projections in next year. And then towards the end of the video, we will touch on the transfer portal because there's a lot of stuff going on. That's probably why I want to watch this video anyways. But with how fluid it is, by the time we're starting the video off, and by the time we're at the end of the video, something could have happened. So we'll save that for last. And we have plenty of thoughts on the portal as well. Cam Coleman's out there, Parker Livingston to OU, so a bunch of stuff to talk about. But before we get into it, please, I'll be always ask that you like the video, comment, and subscribe. And we really, really appreciate it. So thank y'all. Y'all are the best. All right, Kyle, let me pass it to you first. You were boots on the ground in your fedora um, at the Citrus Bowl watching Texas versus Michigan. What were your thoughts on the game?
It's a great game. At the end of it, you know, here in Texas, we all say it. There's God, there's family, and there's football. So it was an all around good day. Great weather, a little cold, but other than that, it was fine being down in Florida. Texas versus Michigan. Two-story programs, two blue bloods, two teams looking to get that 10th win on the season. It was just a great game all around. Yes, I chose Michigan, but hey, I'm happy to be back on the burnt orange side of things. It was a great game, entertaining wise, but also it's a good game because it showed us a lot that we need going into this transfer portal, going into the offseason to get better into next year. But all around, man, great game. I'm glad Texas got that 10th win on the season. In my mind, I think this is a very successful season. But hey, capped off by a great Cheez It Bowl win.
Yeah, you always want to end on a high note like that, especially as we always talked about. It's a nice springboard in the next season, just camaraderie's at an all-time high, morale's high. The young guys stepped up. I mean, obviously, Arch Manning, kind of launched his 2026 Heisman campaign, very, very much like how Vince Young launched. He didn't win the Heisman, but he was runner-up in that 2004 Rose Bowl. He had such a big game against Michigan and had a great year in '05. He won it all. So we hope history repeats itself there. Arch made some plays, man. He's so hard to sack, and we always talk about it, but he's just so impressive navigating chaos because that Michigan D line was legit. I don't know how gutted they were with portal and graduates or NFL opt-outs, but they still had some guys, coming at Arch, and those pockets in the first half were not really there. So he was having to navigate on the fly, and he was doing a great job. We had so many drop problems, which I think it's kind of exciting that we let Livingston go, let DeAndre Moore go, and we're really attacking receiver in the portal. That needs to happen. There's a decent floor there with Wingo and Mosley coming back, and then Khalil Lockett had a breakout touchdown. A great game from Khalil Lockett. That's a guy that I've been very high on. He was a five-star out of high school. I'm glad he's finally getting some playing time. But we need higher caliber receivers for Arch's likely his last season at Texas, and I hope that the staff is doing it. I know they're all in on Cam Coleman. We'll talk about that, but the offense played great. Christian Clark stepped up. He's a guy that didn't get much playing time all year, and you can kind of see why we didn't want to pay Trey Wisner $1 million because honestly, Christian Clark looked very just as explosive as Trey Wisner, if not more. He was able to get upfield, went up for over 100 yards. Just the second time all year that we've had a 100-yard rusher, and it was on Clark's first start. So that's very exciting, but very encouraging. He's a guy that'll probably have a role now next year. I don't know if he'll be our backup or our third string. Maybe he'll have to start. I hope not. I hope we load up in the portal at running back, but he's going to be involved next year, and he's a guy that you think we can rely on. So that was a great sign. And defense, man, defense was it was a patch job out there. Johnny Nansen calling the game. So many opt-outs, so many young guys. But Ty Anthony Smith was flying around, two interceptions, nine tackles, and Hero Canoe was disrupting a lot. Alex January had a good game. I really like that guy, a D tackle. Colin Simmons, of course, flashed. And Wardell Matt got a pick, which is exciting because he's the guy that was teetering with the portal or flirting with the portal. That's the guy that we want to keep. But the young corners, they and DBs, they played solid down the stretch. You know, there were moments where they weren't in the right spots, but overall, that's all you can ask for. I know Michigan was gutted too. They didn't have their starting running backs, and but they turned Underwood loose, and he was throwing downfield, and you know, we gave up some plays, but we also made some plays. So overall, the defense played good enough, but the offense really is what won the game for us.
Absolutely. There's been a lot of good about this game. I definitely want to touch on some bad real quick, but I think all around this was a great game, like we said, for Texas to learn about what they're going to have going into 2026, especially with looming all those, opt-outs that were going into this game. Michigan and Texas were two very different teams going into this bowl game. You know, Michigan only had three opt-outs, and basically their defense outside of Jay Sean Barnum, who was their number one rusher at the time, their version of Colin Simmons, was the only one who was missing on that defense. So what Texas was able to do in the fourth quarter and finally start put breaking down that Michigan defense and finally getting a way to score and kind of get the game out of hand, that was very impressive because they basically played a all-together Michigan defense. So that's really good right there for us on that end. What I want to say though is that Will Muschamp has a lot to work on this defense going in because even though didn't have Jordan Marshall, their number two running back, or Justice Haynes, their number one running back. They were on their number three guy, Bryson Cusdall, who just recently entered the portal. But he was gashing us. You know, granted, there was not any of those big, long, 40 plus yard runs like Michigan had bound to happen, but they were able to establish some form of run game, which basically showed you that this defense for Texas, the theme of it for the past 4 to 5 years of PK has been if you can run on Texas or you just pack a run game at them, you will have a decent chance of scoring on our defense, which showed going into the fourth quarter. This was a tight ball game, and it finally took Arch Manning having a Vince Young breakout moment of running a 40 plus yard touchdown in to finally, open things up offensively. At the same time, I'm happy we were able to run the ball ourselves, even with just Clark. That just showed both teams were able to run the ball on their defenses, which is saying a lot about the quality of the run game. But guess what? We saw the same issues on offense as we've seen through the entire year. Untimely penalties, whether this was the refs or whatnot. A lot of offensive linemen, jumping off sides, illegal formations, holdings, or then drop passes from our receivers. So we still saw a few things that we need to shore up to going into the portal, like our offensive line. And as we see, even Livingston, who just, who he entered the portal, the turncoat, he actually ended up not having a decent game here in the Cheez-It Bowl than we expected. So maybe that also fueled his decision, knowing that he had his interview and he kind of bombed it. And that's why we're going to the portal. Maybe that's what was going to happen. He was going to get limited on his action because of this performance of this bowl game. I think the bowl game and the season of 2025, the theme was transparency. If you were going to give 70 or 80% effort in the portal, recruiting, and development overall, that's how that position group favored at the end of the day. With our offense, that's why we ended probably around a 75-80 mark. That's how much effort we put into them over the offseason. Now we realize we have to put in 100% every single position group and portal and personnel going forward. I think 2025 will be a year known as a lot of lessons learned for this Sarkeesian Texas team.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, the 2024 team had similar undisciplined issues. You know, we've always been a pretty highly penalized team. Unfortunately, that's just what Sark kind of is right now, or this program is with the guys we have in place. We were just able to overcome it with talent in 23 and 24, especially in 24. So yeah, we need to definitely clean that up this offseason. I'm not crazy about retaining Kyle Flood, but apparently it was very important to keep him to keep Gooseby on board. So I kind of get that because it's hard to you don't want to have to go try to find a franchise left tackle like that in the portal if you can keep Gooseby and patch it up for one more year. But I think lack of discipline problems stem from our offensive line, and Kyle Flood, he's the culprit for that. But yeah, a lot to clean up going into 2025. My thoughts on this year was we had these crazy expectations out the gate. I'm not sure. I mean, I thought we were a top 10 team for sure. Number one, I wasn't saying we should be number one. Um, but then again, I looked around that landscape and I was like, well, on paper looks really good. They could win it all. So I get the hype, but I mean, we had too many holes, too many deficiencies, too much youth out there, especially on O line and at quarterback and at receiver, and it just didn't come together. But I will say I'm pleased with how they responded, man. When we got killed in the swamp to drop to 3-2, and we still had that gauntlet ahead of us with OU, Georgia, A&M. I mean, on the road in Lexington, Hale State, Vanderbilt, even throwing Michigan in the Cheez-It Bowl to go like what is it, 7-1 down the stretch with such a flawed team. That just shows like the culture that we have. It's a championship culture. It is. But next year is about, well, starting this offseason is about filling those big old holes we have left on the roster and patching everything and going all in for 2026. Arch's, last year at Texas, Colin Simmons last year at Texas, because this is like windows don't come around that often. And I think Texas, we let a window get away in 2024, 2023. This year, the window wasn't really open, but it should be open if we make the right moves one more time, at least in the short term in 2026. So we need to capitalize on it while we can. The landscape of college football is always changing. It's getting more and more wild and just chaotic by the year. I mean, look at Texas Tech just buying everyone. So it's just the whole game is changing, and you just don't know when these windows are going to come around. So um, we got to capitalize on 2026. But I will say we swept our rivals again. We beat OU by double digits, beat A&M by double digits. We had the hardest schedule in the country, man. We did. We went 9-3, and it's really not. It's honestly not fair that we didn't get in the playoff. But I mean, that's just life in the SEC. I thought we were one of the best 12 teams, but I don't think we were good enough to win it all. Too many flaws, too undisciplined. But that's what this offseason's for. The portal's for. We got a nice nucleus coming back with Gooseby, Colin Simmons, and Jelani and Arch Manning, of course. That's four, in my opinion, first round guys that you're going to start out the gate. So let's go build this thing up. And the whole D line's back. So that's a great, besides Ethan Burke, but that's a great starting point going into 2026.
Absolutely. You couldn't say any better myself, man. And I know my last thing was a little bit doom and gloom, but let's take a look at this seriously. You said it best. We beat A&M. We beat Oklahoma. We have a 10-win season. We won our bowl game. This is, in my mind, this is a passing grade, successful season. This is going back to the Mac Brown era, and I think Mac Brown really helped build a standard for Texas fans and Texas sport and for Texas football. If you can get a 10-win season, that's a successful season, especially if you also can add wins on over A&M and OU. That keeps your job going. That allows you to make these coaching decisions this offseason. And it's not one of those coaching decisions where it's like, we need to get rid of this guy to get better. It's we have the luxury of getting rid of this guy and bringing in someone else because we believe this is going to get us over the hump of a 10-win season to go win a national championship. If you really look at the results of this season, I will say this. Two games, Ohio State and Florida, were games that Texas beat themselves. We were dropping balls, we were getting untimely penalties. You could really say those games we lost because of self-inflicted wounds. And it was if we just played a clean game, we could have walked out of Columbus with a win, especially with how we saw Indiana handle them, and now Miami handle them, and now we see the flaws that, of course, Florida happened over the year. It's kind of one of those these teams weren't that good, or they weren't as big and bad as we thought they were. They're still good teams, and we could have added more wins there. But at the end of it, if you look at those games, the reason we lost was because of us. It wasn't Ohio State beat Texas. It was Texas lost the game. It was Texas lost to Florida. Texas lost to Ohio State. And if you can just and if we can win those games, This is a 12-1 team. And as we see, there's one 12-1 team that caught fire, and it's Ole Miss, and so they beat Georgia, and now they avenge themselves against Georgia. I think there will not be a national champion who's going to be 16-0. There is going to be one loss on this. Texas should be very happy because we can fix these things. It is us to be in the driver's seat next season. And this one stat at the end of the year that I'm really going to claim is that we have won the most top 25 matchups out of everyone in the SEC since joining 2 years ago. And I think that just shows you that we're winning games in the SEC against quality teams, not just we're in here playing Hartford, Sanford, and Northwest Miami Technical College. We are playing good teams in the top 25. We are playing hard quality competition. Yes, it's a shame we didn't make the national championship or make even the CFP this year, but you know what? I think the committee made a right choice because these have been some pretty good games so far. And the four teams remaining look like they could all win it all. And I have to eat my words now about Miami because I said a lot of bad things about them last episode, and now they look like they're the saviors of the world. So hats off to everyone.
Yeah, man. I mean, the semifinal is going to be awesome. I can't wait. It's just so cool seeing just four random teams. Really, there's no like blue bloods in there. It's just a bunch of just good, great teams that are hot at the right time, which is why I think Texas being in the playoff would have been interesting because I think we'd qualify as one of those teams that's hot at the right time down the stretch. So I'm sure we could have made some noise, but like I said, I don't think we would have won it all. And I don't want to keep harping on that. So, but yeah, the semis are going to be awesome. So before we move on to the portal, I'm just going to give you my grade on the season. I'm going to give it a C plus. So it's a passing grade, but we were kind of like the returning valedictorian student, and we were expecting an A. We were expecting, the preseason expectations, even though they were mostly not coming from Texas fans. Let's be honest, it was mostly the media machine, Paul Feinbaum, anointing Texas for clicks and to trigger rival Texas derangement fans that. So it's like a PR business move, and I get that. But still, we had high expectations. We were in the semis the last 2 years, and we didn't even make the playoff this year. So you can't ignore that. But we had the hardest schedule. We still swept our rivals all by double digits, and we were a young team. We grew up. We we I think we played well down the stretch. So I'll give us a C plus. What do you think, Kyle?
I'm going to give it the Kyle Reyes special, college special, which is a B minus. We lost all the games that we lost the challenging games that we really had circled. And we put a lot of hype behind them. We lost them. So we basically will say we failed the midterm and we failed the final exam, but we went after every single bonus assignment, side quest, whatever you want to call it, for a football team and accomplished it. We beat both our rivals. We won 10 games. We end up having an extremely high strength of schedule at the end of the season. And then at the same time, you've now capped it with a impressive most ranked wins in the SEC. You quelled a ton of haters in regards to can Sark win top 10 matchups? Yes, he can. It's not that he has a big game problem, it's that he has a Kirby and Orion Day problem, which is not something that I'm going to be totally against. And you won your bowl game against a quality opponent who did not have a lot of opt-outs. So this was a full strength Michigan team who just didn't have a head coach. So, this was a success. B minus because just a little bit more than a C, but you're not good enough to get a regular B. And I'm going to say a B minus on Texas because there's still room to improve. And really, at the end of this, you can still say the evaluation of the 2025 team is still on because we're going to see what happens in spring ball. We're going to see how a lot of these young guys who got the success of the bowl game, who got into this preparation, we're going to see if they can grow on it and continue to get better into the spring ball, as well as are they willing to compete with this new competition that's coming in from the transfer portal. And that's what you want to see. This is where we're going to start building our veteran talent. And so we're going to find this B minus could easily become a C plus because we could see the guys who stayed did not develop, got complacent, and they're not going to support the team next year, or they could be developing and we can make this B minus into a B. So we'll see what happens. I think this jury's still out, but otherwise, just with the season results, this is a B minus in my opinion.
All right, so let's celebrate. We passed. We both passed the test, even though we didn't ace it. But I guess that's what makes it fun. You can't just win it all every year. But we've been waiting since '05, so hopefully 26 is the year. But okay, well, now we'll get to the juicy stuff that everybody wants to talk about is the transfer portal. So I want to start off the top. I want to pass it back to Kyle, but let me just go through the list real fast. As far as Texas players outgoing, Trey Wisner committed to Florida State. I believe he got like $600,000 is what I read, and that's pretty much what we were offering him. So he didn't get the $1 million tag that he wanted. So kind of wish he would have stayed, but that's okay. Good for Trey. That's a good landing spot, I think. Parker Livingston. So there was all this drama on social media whenever he hit the portal because he said it was out of his control and he never dreamed of transferring from Texas. But Texas offered him what, $600,000 to stay as a receiver here, and that wasn't enough for him. So he went to the portal and committed to the rival school, Oklahoma, for I think it was $800,000. So at least though he's paying a little bit more. So I mean, good on him, I guess. But it's just a wild world that we live in. Kyle, what are your thoughts on Parker Livingston going to the other side of the Red River?
Hmm. It's absolutely despicable. I will just tell you this right now. No good man who was once a Longhorn and wears University of Texas logo on his chest would ever look to go to Oklahoma. The only time I even kind of forgave it with Casey Thompson was because his dad and his family were OU guys. And so he came to Texas, did his performance and then went to OU, kind of whatever. But Parker Livingston, this guy who's like, I bleed burnt orange. I'm a Longhorn through and through. How in the world can you take $800,000 from the Sooners, a team that you personally have been a part of now, and you've seen what happens when they play us in Dallas? You've watched this. You have been a part of the team that prevents them from scoring a touchdown in 3 years. But you want to go there? Okay, hey, fine, dude. Enjoy not scoring on us for the next, 3 years of your career. You weren't that good anyways. You dropped a lot of balls that you should have caught, and they were in your hands. You were injury prone when you got hit just a little bit too hard, so you're kind of a pussy in my opinion. And you know what, man? I you went to OU. You went to OU. I would have forgave you if you went to Tech. I would have forgiven you if you went to Florida. Hell, I would have forgiven you if you went to Alabama or Georgia. But you said, I'm gonna go to OU, a team that will never make the CFP again. You're going to have John Mateer and his limp thumb throwing you passes that are going to be maybe the equivalent of a newborn baby. You're going to get picked off 1,000 times, and don't you think that for 1 second when you come back to Dallas next year that every Texas Longhorn in that DB room, if you're starting, is going to come for your head. They're gonna serve your skull to your mother at the end of the game when we're done because you're one of those guys that we just want to headhunt at that point and you're gonna get killed. So if you want to chase the bag and you're gonna say this is Texas's fault for losing you, then good riddance. I don't want you anywhere near my team. Enjoy, Sucklahoma, and we will happily see you in the UFL when your college career is done. So, Parker Livingston, adios. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200 and screw off. I don't care. That's my opinion on him.
There you have it. And we sound like we have sour grapes here, but we don't. If you go back and listen to us every week on this podcast, a constant theme is us being like, man, our receivers are not good. Parker Livingston's out there just getting just like bodied. He can't get open. He drops whenever he does get open, he drops it. He doesn't have breakaway speed. So I mean, I'm sure he'll be good for OU. He's probably an upgrade to what they had in that receiver room, but he's still like not good enough for Texas. I mean, in my humble opinion, That's just my thoughts. We need to upgrade. I mean, we're used to having first rounders out there with Matt Golden, Isaiah Bond types, Xavier Worthy, AD Mitchell. Livingston was far from that, and he wanted to be compensated like one and treated as like a wide receiver one. So I think this is best for both teams. OU upgrades with our scraps. So this is good. I think Mateer trying to complete a ball to Parker Livingston's going to be very unlikely because first of all, Mateer, if he's not throwing it to our DBs, he'll be throwing it in the dirt. If it is somehow getting into Livingston's area code, he'll probably drop it or injure himself. So I think that's a good match made in heaven for the Livingston and the Sooners. And I kind of like it because I never was high on Livingston, and I'm glad he's going to the rival. But I'll say good luck, but obviously it doesn't sound sincere after what we all said. So, but yeah, Parker Livingston to OU, and this is just the crazy nature of the portal these days. It's just transferring to your rival on a whim, over $300,000 or $200,000. That's just a lot of money. That's a lot of money. So that's valid, I guess. But it's just wild that that's the state of college football. Um, anyways, other portal intel. Everyone wants to talk about Cam Coleman. Cam Coleman is the Auburn wide receiver and he visited Texas, visited A&M, and now he may go to Lubbock tomorrow. Probably to drive that price up. I don't see him actually going to Texas Tech. I think there's a cap on what Texas Tech can get in terms of like caliber of player. Texas Tech's loading up in the portal on these like ACC guys, these G5 guys, and they're good, highly ranked, lower level players, but when it comes to like first team all SEC, first round talent, I don't know if the money is going to make that much of a difference because this guy's going to be making tens of millions of dollars next year once he gets to. So I think hopefully, it'll be more about fit, quarterback, scheme, and I think Texas, presents a lot to like with Arch. You could be Arch's number one guy, and Arch is so good at the deep ball, and we've been lacking a guy that can go up and get a deep ball. We didn't have it all year, and it cost us because Arch throws a beautiful deep ball, and I think Coleman to Arch would just be like, you know, amazing combination. So hopefully that can get done. A&M's got some momentum there too. Bama's trying to get in there, but he's the number one player in the portal, and Texas says they're all in, which I'm skeptical about. But keep your eyes on that. Hopefully Texas can land that because that's a game changer. That changes everything. If you have him and Wingo and Arch like that's just before you even get to the running back part, that's just an insane trio just to keep defenses coordinators up at night. So Cam Coleman's the hot topic. Running back, we've had issues. Isaac Brown from Louisville was supposed to come here. That never happened, never entered the portal officially. Jaden Baugh, the Florida guy we wanted that we've talked about, he announced today he's staying in Florida. So we're pivoting. We're pivoting all over the place. It doesn't seem like we have any backup plans that we know about yet, which is kind of concerning as the days go on. The portal's only 15 days. We're already on to like day 6. So the staff needs to, get their ducks in a row. But Raleek Brown's a guy that they're talking about. We've gotten some crystal balls for him from Arizona State. He's a dynamic guy, super explosive, smaller guy, breakaway speed. He's shifty, a little tougher runner than Wisner, but he's not a bell cow down to down, every down back. He's real short. He's more of a gadget guy, kind of like a Jaden Blue. So if we get him, which we might, we need to get another running back too that can be the bruiser to go with him. So, and as well as the O line. The O line needs a lot of help. The Michigan guys we were trying to tamper with and get, doesn't look like that's going to happen. So that's very concerning. And I really haven't seen any other names on these websites, with the insiders posting about other O linemen that we were getting on campus. So it's concerning because we need at least two. But like when we started portal season, we were talking like 4 or 5. Like we wanted 4 or 5, and now we're just begging for two good starters. So it's just kind of it's concerning. That it absolutely is concerning. And same with linebacker. Linebacker, I have a little more patience there because this Cal linebacker, all ACC, all American, he's a guy that Texas I think is going to get on campus, and I think Texas has some lines in the water there more so than offensive line. So I'm not going to panic there. We got that Arkansas D lineman, for depth, that giant 5 technique. But I'm not worried about D line. We got Bo Moscow at corner, the Rutgers All Big Ten honorable mention. He committed this evening, and he's a guy that Ohio State wanted, and he was like a top 5 corner in the portal. So that's a good pickup. But once again, not really a position of need in my eyes. We really need linebackers, receivers, running backs, offensive linemen, and a safety would be nice. So, a lot of stuff up in the air. It's so fluid. By the time I upload this, which I'm going to do as soon as we're done filming, there'll probably be a new update. This will be obsolete, but that's kind of where we're at as of recording right now. Kyle, do you have any thoughts on the portal or any guys in particular you're looking at or want Texas to go get?
Well, I'm talking about going to the Cam Coleman situation. I'm going to talk about this from a business perspective. He is a savvy individual. If he is courting all three of the big Texas schools that have basically unanimously across the internet, and like the country knows Texas Tech, Texas A&M, and University of Texas will throw big bucks at each other, especially if they're all wanting the same talent. So he's a very smart individual. He's going to get the most money out of this. I think Texas Tech is not only capped in its resources, but it's also capped in the personnel that it can provide for Cam Coleman. I think Cam Coleman's really just showing this Tech since he went to it last as a can I get a little bit more money out of this? Maybe that 1.2 million instead of that 1 point, instead of just the 1 million on the dot. Um, if you look at this, Marcel Reed just does not have the arm to provide Cam Coleman with what he wants, and how A&M uses their offensive receivers is just run downfield and turn around. Cam Coleman is a dynamic route runner with a very extensive route tree. This is where you want to. This is where having Sarkisian as your play caller and your head coach really attracts these receivers coming in, and especially having Arch Manning now, because this is Coleman and Arch Manning is the relationship that we wanted with Isaiah and Quinn. We thought Quinn had a decent enough deep ball that Isaiah could just run underneath and have the be striking the James Bond pose in the end zone every 5 seconds. But what we found out was Isaiah was a little bit injury prone and Quinn wasn't as accurate downfield as we thought. Arch has a dime, and we saw it on display at the Cheez-It Bowl. The Cheez-It Bowl alone was Arch's tryout to every receiver in the nation saying, "Hey guys, if you can just catch the damn ball, come to University of Texas and I'll get the ball into your hands. And we're gonna win a lot of ball games because I got 10 wins with a receiving core that could not catch the ball, or if not was 50-50 on the ball. So that's where you went there. They made a real. I really like to say you got a good catch with this tight end out of Michigan State. Again, watching the Michigan State Michigan game, that guy was one of their only weapons out there for Michigan State. So I think he's a good pickup. And if you really want a running back, I know we've struck out on everyone from Michigan because it just seems that they are all now staying in home because Whittingham is doing Whittingham things, but Bryson Cusdall, the running back that we just played against, the number three guy, who's he's in this realm of is Justice Haynes going to come back for one more year? Is Jordan Marshall going to stay for his next year? So it's really Cusdall. It's me potentially as a number three. I'm also going to have to be sharing reps with these new upcoming freshmen. He entered the portal just 2 days ago because I think he's testing the water, see if a team could say we could use you as a starter now. And honestly, you want that bruising back, Matt? Cusdall might not look the size, but damn it, he runs like Isaiah Pacheco. He just runs aggressive, and I like that. Got to have a great conversation with his mom and his dad in the airport. We were in the long TSA line together, so it's I think they're a great. He has a great head on his shoulders. He's a walk-on who got turned into a scholarship guy. He got action. He got 3 games under his belt. Northwestern, which was a good game. Maryland, which is a bruising defense that he ran over. And then, of course, he unfortunately walked into the buzzsaw of Ohio State and Texas. But don't take those last 2 games as like an overall performance. We could see great upside, and he has great speed. So that could be don't be surprised if somehow that happens because there is already a ton of rumblies and the tumblies, as I call it, that Liana Lafau might be a Michigan Wolverine within the week. Michigan is very low on linebackers right now because of Barnum and a lot of guys heading to the draft. And Lafau was looking and talking to what I heard from sources, the BYU Hayes coach before he took the job at Michigan. So now that he's over at Michigan, could LaFau be going to Michigan and following this BYU coaching staff? We don't know, but it would make a fit because right now there are open spots in Ann Arbor. So do not be surprised if we're going to see eventually a Texas Longhorn Michigan swap of personnel in some point in time. I'm just saying it most likely would be a running back from Michigan getting traded to Texas for one of our linebackers, most likely LaFau.
You're calling for the third stringer. I want the starter. I want Justice Haynes. I'm seeing that on message boards now. Justice Haynes may come back to school, and why not enter the portal? You can
Well,
make money at Texas. We need a franchise running back. I know Michigan. I know he's the franchise guy at Michigan too, but come play in the SEC. Come play with Arch. Let's go get Justice Haynes.
you want someone else though. I think Justice Haynes is a great running back, don't get me wrong, but I think he needs more of that ground and pound, true Michigan style offense. I just don't think he could actually fit in our speed style pro offense that Sarkisian runs. Granted, again, great running back. I just do not think he fits in our scheme. That's why I do want Cusdahl because he still brings us that pain, but he provides us a little bit more speed than Justice, and he is a little bit more laterally efficient than Justice was. And that's just what I could see. And I think he'd be a great fit because like we see with Isaiah Pacheco in that Kansas City offense, it works out pretty well for him. Another good person I could look at is Nebraska. I think they are now in a tailspin as a program. The carcass is out. Matt Rule is screwed. He lost Dylan Raiola. I told you this was going to happen. He most likely will not be going to Texas Tech, but he will be going somewhere else. But the running back out of Nebraska, he was one of their only tools. Now that he realizes his one quarterback that could give him a chance to open the backfield up for him, don't be surprised if Nebraska's running back now hits the portal and potentially comes down to Texas because Texas can provide just as much blue collar and tradition as Nebraska, but we get more results. And I think he's tired of losing, and I think he looks a whole lot better in orange than in red.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm looking through here on this list of recruits or portal guys that have come. Jaden Woods from Florida came and visited. He's like a really highly ranked edge, NFL first round upside. But Florida's trying to get him back, and it feels like every school that cycles back and is trying to get players that we're after gets them to come back now. So I guess they just use Texas for leverage, and so that's concerning whenever the player's current school circles back. But Florida State DB Edwin Joseph, we need a safety, man. We need a safety badly, I think. I don't know if Derek Williams is going to come back or not. Even so, we need a veteran safety. And it'll be hard to find a Makuba level guy, but something like that would be great to pair alongside Jelani McDonald. We need some experience back there, even with Jonah Williams upcoming and some of the young guys. Phil Sami, we need a proven SEC level starter. But yeah, we also got. I failed to mention we got our kicker in place from Memphis, our punter from Florida State, long snapper from New Mexico. So Dreff Banks is, he's getting his stuff done early with the special teams guys, but it's time. We need to get some big fish here in a short manner.
Whatever happened to that Tennessee lineman that we were talking about in our group chat? Did we end up landing that guy, or is he still out there testing the waters right now?
Kyle, I think you're talking about Lance Hurd, the offensive tackle from Tennessee. He's like the highest rated offensive lineman in the portal or one of them. So he's going to be a sought after commodity. And I know Texas was looking at him, but I don't think that's going to happen because I think he wants to be a left tackle. And with Gooseby being here, we have that left tackle spot filled. But I'd like to take another tackle. I'd love to go get a guy like that, but I haven't seen like a visit or anything lined up. So that's probably more wish casting at this time. But that just goes back to the theme of this staff really needs to, be more aggressive on the offensive line, man. It's very concerning. I'm sure we'll end up with some guys out of nowhere that we never knew about that'll end up looking good whenever we sign them, but I just wish there was a little more foresight right now from the staff and Kyle Flood. Kyle Flood sleeping at the wheel per usual. But yeah, speaking of the O line, It just announced that Daniel Cruz is entering the portal. He's a guy that came in here as a low ranked 4-star center. A lot of people like this guy out of high school. He's been on the team for I think he's a redshirt freshman this year. He's been here for 2 years, I think. But he's hitting the portal, and that just takes away our offensive line depth even more. You know, Neto hit the portal, Nate Kibble hit the portal, Connor Stroh hit the portal. So we're running out of bodies now. So it's like in our offensive line class coming in as freshmen, and albeit you don't want to rely on freshmen, they're not even that good of a class. So like we really need to get like 4 or 5 offensive linemen. I keep beating a dead horse, but we need to see some action in short order.
What's the whole situation right now with Baker and that guy Mojo, or what was his name? The guy that was supposed to be starting, but Baker came in because he got hurt with the Achilles or the ACL in fall camp. Is that guy still with us by chance, or is he hitting the portal too?
Yeah, I think Kojo's going to stick around. I think his stock's pretty low coming off the ACL or whatever it was, which will be nice because he was a guy that people were hyping up. He's a guy that's been in the program and developed and was going to be a starting guy for us this year, likely. So that'll be good to have him. I think he profiles more to a tackle than a guard, but I think he's got some flexibility. That's a guy we need to utilize, it looks like now, since we're not getting anyone. So yeah, I'm glad he'll still be in the fold. And you still, it sounds like we're going to keep Connor Robertson too, or we're working to now since we're running out of options. So that's good. I thought he played pretty solid down the stretch at the center. And Baker comes back. We think Goosby's locked in as well. So that's 3 of the 5 back. You would think Kojo could be a player for us in some capacity, but you still need to get at least 3 or 4 more, in my opinion, to feel comfortable. You know, Arch is going to bail you out, but we need to have some running lanes for the running backs. You know, and pass pro, that's one thing because Arch is Houdini back there. But we'd love to have Arch have a nice pocket. Imagine how good it'd be with a nice pocket and good receivers at all times. So I just wish that we would be more greedy. It's a continuing theme on this video. It's like, come on, guys. It's like all in was supposed to be like the messaging that they were putting out. These message board guys and the staff. They're like, it's gonna be all in. We're gonna go big on the portal. It's not too late, but it's nearing panic time if they don't act quick. There's still plenty of good prospects out there. So let's see how this thing finishes up. But right now it's looking a little scary.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen, especially with since I was firsthand a little bit here watching the Michigan situation happen after the bowl game, as you saw a ton of Michigan men hit the portal. And then slowly, as this week has already started, you've seen that Whittingham has been able to, as he says, meet with every player starting at the bowl game. And then he's drinking from a fire hose right now, trying to not only learn everything Michigan, but then at the same time retain his guys. You're starting to see that some guys are getting that continuity and they're withdrawing their name from the portal. And you're seeing that not just at Michigan, but Florida and vice versa. A couple of these other target guys that we've tried to go after, the guys are withdrawing their names. It's one of those things that you kind of could see that with this whole idea that Texas is being used as like the money goat, the hey, here's the next Annie. Then the hometown team says, okay, if Texas is going to offer him, we'll offer him something to keep him here and stuff. You kind of going to start. I'm kind of have a feeling that we're going to see potentially a guy like LaFau or some of these other dudes who have hit the portal who haven't declared yet and haven't signed with the team. You could easily see them potentially, not getting an offer and potentially just taking back the offer with Texas, which would help with our depth and stuff like that. But now you're asking the question of do they want to even be here in the first place, which is where we're really going to start testing that culture. But yes, man, I'll tell you right now, the one thing that's holding back Texas right now, and I think both of our opinions is the offensive line and Kyle Flood. And after talking to a very insightful ball knower out of Grand Junction, Colorado, named Robert on the plane ride home from the Cheez-It Bowl, that's the one thing he kind of enlightened me to was that we probably might not see a change at the offensive line room unless something drastically happens where they just totally fall off a cliff. Because what we saw was PK and Akina, who were not Sark's first picks for defensive coaching staff. They're the ones who are getting let go for Muschamp and bringing back what's his face, uh, Blake Gideon. So you're bringing those guys back, but yet the two guys who've been here since the beginning, Flood and Banks, the guys we've constantly kind of had some issues with, They were Sark's first choice at offensive line and tight end slash special teams. So there might be a little bit of that. He's going to keep hanging on some longer than they should be and way past their expiration date. So you're kind of hoping that Kyle Flood can repay some of this loyalty with some winning offensive line play. But you're right. We're getting towards that time, and yes, I know there's still four teams playing football right now, but we can't bank on these four teams potentially winning the national championship and some guys hitting the portal between now and then because we need to start getting these guys enrolled into schools now. And that's where you kind of have this question of, is one transfer portal window enough? Do you want to bring back that spring one? Do we need to start putting the limitations of sitting out a year? There's a lot of things going on, and I think this portal is really bringing a lot of questions to a lot of teams. And this is not just affecting Texas. This is affecting almost every team not playing in the CFP right now. That their team is basically totally up for free agency, and everyone's being re-signed, and that's what it almost feels like right now in college football.
Yeah, it feels very much like the NFL, and these agents are running the show now. So it's just like, and Texas is like the magnet for leverage plays. Unfortunately, everyone's using Texas, it appears. And they're doing that. They're doing that with Texas Tech too. I think Cam Coleman, like visiting Tech, is some of that. Tech's offering me $6 million. What can you do for me, Texas? And get another million out of Texas. So yeah, it's just all over the place. But Derek Williams, the Longhorn safety, speaking of guys coming back from the portal, just announced that he's going to withdraw from the portal, which is exciting. That's a guy that was, I've said it on here before. I think he was probably our best DB last season up until his injury, and that's in a secondary that had Makuba and Jade Barron and Michael Taff in it. So he was a really good player for us. He had that bad injury, and he was never really the same this year. He just didn't look, as confident or as fast or as physical. But he was a freak for us, in that 2024 season as it started off, and getting him back with Gideon and Muschamp, another year of getting healthy and getting, comfortable in his body again. He could be a guy that, just all of a sudden you look up as a senior and he's just a beast of a player for us. So that's huge. That's a position of need, safety. So, worst case, he starts alongside Jelani McDonald. And, there's a lot of upside there. We saw the upside. We just need to get him fully healthy and acclimated to Muschamp's system. But that's exciting. That's a much needed recommitment. And I mean, LaFau would be great to get back at the right price. I mean, I would love to have LaFau back. It wasn't the most athletic specimen, but he's a good linebacker, and he's a guy that you want to at least have for depth. And he's got leadership qualities, and he's a veteran. So yeah, if we could circle back, I mean, that might be our best option. DeAndre Moore's a guy that I never really wanted to lose. DeAndre Moore, Parker Livingston, I was happy when he entered the portal. But DeAndre Moore was a guy I was happy to have. I don't want to be our number one guy, but I wanted him to be like our number two or three. I thought he was that, good enough. It just didn't come together this year because of so many different reasons. Offensive line, Arch was off start off the year and just didn't happen. And then he had drops when he did get some balls. So, but that's a guy that I would like to have back. So yeah, I wonder if Texas will circle back now that it seems like we're striking out a lot of our top guys. But this is all so fluid. I mean, we could we could in an hour just land some stud offensive linemen and then get Coleman to commit in tomorrow or the next day. Then all of a sudden we're on top of the world and winning the Natty. So we're a little overreactionary here, a little emotional, but when you're playing ball at this level, we're not trying to go 10-3 again. We're trying to win a national championship or at least win the SEC title, go to the playoff, win some games, get Archer Heisman. We're trying to do big things. And it's just we're gonna look back at this period next season, hopefully not, and be like, man, I wish we did more in the portal. I don't want to do that. So I hope that we handle these next couple weeks with great intention and aggressiveness because we're close, man. We're close. We just got to patch up the holes.
You're not wrong, and I think what we're all kind of overreacting with is there's not really a lot of holes in the first place. Yes, we're saying, our entire linebacker room's obliterated, our running back room is vacant and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, we are the University of Texas. Whether it's at the 11th hour or here in the next hour, we will attract some large talent to our running back room because of the situation. We will be able to engage and get a wide receiver or two into our wide receiver room because of Sark as an offensive play caller. We will be able to find an offensive lineman somewhere by throwing the bag and letting them know you're going to get to eat Texas barbecue every single day of your life while you're here at the University of Texas. We're going to find a way to bring in these guys. We have the resources, we have it. It's just going to take some patience. And I know that's not with a limited time frame of 16, 19 days or whatever, 2 weeks of this portal being open. I know patience is not the word a lot of people have to hear, but we're gonna have to trust the process on this one. I think we have the right guys in place to recruit not only high school but the portal, and we also have to see some of these young guys who we saw action in the bowl game who aren't declaring. We there has to be some what I've seen with teams now being on the inside at Michigan and then of course just seeing Texas throughout the years, there has to be some form of retribution or as Shannon Sharp would say, restitution for their actions in the bowl games and for their performances. A lot of these young guys who are playing in the bowl game and decide to stay at Texas didn't even enter the portal. They were hoping that this performance that with the win and the winning performance that they provide, as well as showing the loyalty, will provide them some room in the starting rotation at some point. So we're really going to have to see the development of these guys in spring, because if that is the case, then we're not too down bad at some of these position groups as we think we are. Heck, maybe our running back room, our number one guy is there, and he's just going to get even better with more and more touches and more practice. Maybe our DBs and linebackers, vice versa, are the same way. Maybe these young guys just needed 1 or 2 games, and now they're going to be the next Derek Johnson. Who knows? But this is going to be one of those things where it's not just. Let's not forget that we do have talent still in the locker room at the University of Texas, and that it was developed and put on showcase at the Cheez-It Bowl. So let's not forget these guys. I know we're giving a lot of attention to the portal and to the guys who we can get out of the portal and the guys we're losing to the portal, but we have to keep it a buck and still say we have a decent talent base that's not going to be talked about up until the spring game, because they're not partaking in any of this stuff. And I think those guys, there is a diamond or two in them that's going to help us win a national championship next year.
That's a great point. That's a great point. It's very doom and gloom here. But you're right. You're right. I mean, the receiver room, we got 5 stars all over that place, young guys. I mean, Khalil Lockett looked great. That's a 5-star guy, number 2 receiver in the nation last recruiting cycle. He's a guy that'll be really good for us next year. Jamie French is going to stick around too. I think he's a 5-star guy. Uh, Michael Terry, 5-star guy from Alamo Heights. He's a gadget guy. I mean, there's a lot of talent, man. Derek Cooper coming in at running back. That guy looks like a freak show. He's a 5-star guy. Tyler Atkinson coming in at linebacker, a 5-star guy. Ty Anthony Smith is becoming a star for us. He's going to be a great player for us next season. And it's just you go across the board. Cade Phillips is stepping up into a star, 5-star guy. Grayson Littleton's going to be one of the best DBs in the SEC next year. So you're right. There's a lot of talent there. I just want to, I really just want to I keep saying the same thing over again. Just make sure we patch the holes. But you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. I will say the offensive line, I don't think has the type of talent the rest of the team has. So, and that stems from recruiting. Kyle Flood has not done a great job recruiting either. So that's more of my frustrations are more focused on the offensive line. But across the board, I totally agree. I totally agree that we are crying from the yacht. But our goal is to get the Natty in 2026 and break through that glass ceiling. So if you want to win a Natty, you can be nitpicky like this, because this could be the difference between going losing in the quarterfinals or going and playing in the final game on Monday night in the national championship. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. But you're right. There's so much talent on this team, young talent, and that's what makes it exciting.
But I'll give it to you here too, Matt. Man, you are crying at the right spot, the offensive line. This year, 2025, like I said, the theme of this year was transparency. A lot of teams that got a lot of media attention before big games ended up losing. A lot of guys who were not focusing on the transfer portal, like Clemson and Dabo Sweeney, they end up going and having these very disappointing records. Um, I don't want to just say that we need to bank on our high school talent. I need to make sure that I get that across the board. Yes, Kyle Flood has dropped the ball in recruiting, so we do not get to hang our hat on having this touted group of a bunch of five-star, fresh out of high school guys in the offensive line room. So yes, we do need to focus on the transfer portal to get an offensive line because going along with transparency, what we found out with a lot of these teams, Oklahoma, Alabama, teams that looked really good, potentially had a quarterback that can get them to win a game for them, their offensive lines failed. Oklahoma's offensive line was significantly weaker this year. Yes, they got to the playoffs, but that you saw when they started seeing any stiff defensive line competition, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, vice versa, they crumbled pretty quickly. Michigan had a decent offensive line, and that's why they were able to run the ball consistently and get to 9 wins. Ohio State has a very good offensive line that protected Sawyer up until Miami. These if you don't pack an offensive line, as we are finding out, you're not going to make a run at the college football playoffs. Oregon's offensive line looks stout. Ole Miss's offensive line looks very stout, and they held Georgia very well. Miami's, they have to go against their Miami's defensive line every single day. That offensive line is going to be much better week over week as they play more football. And Indiana, of course, is being a very technical and sound machine. You're not seeing a lot of mess ups and missed assignments and false starts, and they're one of the least penalized offensive lines in the country. Those are four examples of very mature and dominant offensive lines, and that's why their teams are playing for a national championship. So you're right, Matt. We do need to share this up. I think this is Bank. I've called this for a long time that I think this is Banks's nut up or shut up year. If he cannot get us a winning Joe Moore, contender offensive line, I think he needs to go next season into 2027.
Yeah, I would let him get fired this season if we did. I wish we would have done that, but I agree. It's like now or never for him. It's been trending poorly for a while now on the offensive line. The best O lines he had were all Herman's guys, all Herman's veterans, and Kelvin Banks, which I mean, give Sark and company and Flood credit for that. But I mean, that guy was an NFL player when he walked on campus as a freshman, so it's kind of hard to take too much into that. But yeah, my final thoughts on all this is, man, this is just so chaotic, so crazy. I really wish, and Kyle and I have talked about this. We got to go back to how it was. NIL is one thing, but you, every transfer portal thing needs to be like a 2-year contract period. Like you can't year to year. Like an article just came out that Texas is working hard to retain Bo Barnes and Christian Clark and Cade Phillips. It's like every year you got to re-recruit and renegotiate with these amateur agents just to keep your player on the team. It's just insane. So we need a little more guardrails. Like I'm for transferring around. I'm for NIL, even though I think the market's definitely inflated for the value. These agents just walk all over these universities, but there needs to be a system in place to keep coaches engaged because I mean I totally empathize with Sark and these coaches that may want to go to the NFL. I mean, it's just like you're always just it's a juggling act trying to keep your roster together, trying to poach someone else's players. Every year it's like a revolving door. It's just there's no stability for these coaches or these programs. So I think it's gonna suffer in terms of just quality coaches leaving the college game to go to the NFL if they can because it's just so chaotic. So something needs to be done. We've talked about it ad nauseum, but I just wanted to end with that is before we transition into our playoff picks. But you got anything else on the portal or the team, Kyle, or do you want to go into the playoff picks?
You're right. You hit a nail. You hit the nail on the head there, Matt. Something needs to be put in. Whether it's you get one-time exception transfer before you graduate with your undergrad degree, and then if you transfer for a second time before you have your graduate degree, before you even have your undergrad, you have to sit out a year. But if you're a graduate transfer, you can transfer and immediately start playing because you have a degree. Maybe something like that. Maybe like what you said, these contracts have to be a minimum of 2 or 3 years. They actually let's start having college players sign contracts to committing to 2, 3 years playing at the university, or potentially even guaranteeing someone we're locking them down for all 4 years. That would be crazy, right? If we sign some kid and say, we're going to get 4 years of college football out of you with this contract signed. When that day comes, when that day comes, I'll tell you, that's when this sport it really gets thrown out the window, is when we're going to have college kids signing for just 2 years, 3 years, and vice versa. But there needs to be something put into place. This transfer portal has gotten out of whack. One date for the transfer portal is not enough. You need to open up that spring portal time again as well. You need to get rid of the early signing and just have two signings at the U.S. All American game, and then one right after the state titles in Christmas and stuff like that, and that's about it. And we need to do something because that's how you're gonna number one. That's how you get a lot of the stress off of these coaches and help them want to stay college coaches because the NFL is what you wanted if is much better than having to deal with all this. This is way too much. Coaches, I think, work twice as hard in college than they do in the NFL, and I think at the same time it will just eliminate some of this drama that's going around the sport because right now a lot of this we're not focusing on the football itself. We're focusing on the externals and the money, and we're getting away from truly just enjoying the sport that we love. So, you know, it's going to take a while. There's still a lot of fixes to be happening, but I think college football will survive at least another 2 years.
Yeah, it'll survive, man. The game is still great, but under the engine, it's really ugly. And we're largely the beneficiaries of the new landscape. I mean, just think about how these schools like James Madison feel. They
Hmm.
get one good player every 3 years, and then as soon as they show any competency, they're gone to the SEC or the Big Ten or Texas Tech. So it's even worse for the further down the totem pole you go. So stuff's gonna change. Like it's gonna be addressed in some capacity. There'll always be uh, you know unevenness in college football. People paying under the table. People skirting around the rules. That's always how it's been. But it's just it's not sustainable at its current pace. So
Hmm.
leave it at that. But alrighty. So before we get out of here, we're gonna go through the playoff semifinals and just give our brief thoughts and picks on that. So Ole Miss versus Miami. That's going to be a fun game. That's going to be a fun game. Trinidad's looking like Manziel out there. He's on fire. And Ole Miss, they're showing me something this postseason with a Pete Golding. And Miami, of course, is on a heater too. They got like a bunch of NFL players out there, big old linemen on both sides of the ball. And the U is definitely back. So that's a big one. And then obviously Indiana versus Oregon, the rematch. Indiana looks like a machine. They're just mowing down every team they play. They already beat Oregon in Autzen Stadium by 10 this year. It's hard to beat a team twice in the same season, but man, Indiana doesn't look like they're going to have any problems. What do you think on these games, Kyle? How do you see it playing out?
Well, one game with Ole Miss in Miami, 2003 called and they said they want their game back. Who would have thought that Miami and Ole Miss would be a marquee game in modern college football? We thought Miami fell off a cliff after all the allegations and then the U kind of just falling apart. We thought Eli Manning was the last good thing to come out of Ole Miss, and then especially with the whole fact that they're going to be doing this without their head coach Lane Kiffin. I'm looking at next year's schedule and I'm thinking, Jesus, we got Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. Those might be the two games we have to have circled on the calendar now as LSU and Ole Miss, and we're going to have to play both those games on the road, which is right now for me. I'm like, this isn't good. And Ole Miss,
Yeah.
their team's going to be basically intact because they're not going to be able to even hit the portal at this rate if they win. If they win this game, their team ain't hitting the portal because they're playing for a national championship, so they're going to basically be together next year. Since there's no other portal date for them to leave or drop out of the team and stuff like that. So these guys are so if they win this game, this is the Ole Miss team you're going to see next year when we go to Oxford. So this is going to be so I really hope Miami can win because that will give me some more confidence in the next season. But as of right now, you know, Ohio State looked vulnerable and Miami did what we couldn't do, which was get pressure to Matt Sawyer. That's why they won the game. Um, or Matt, whatever, Matt Sayin, whatever his name is. I don't
Julian
care.
saying,
Julian Sayin, whatever. I don't care. He
hey,
sucks.
you were on the right track. Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care. Ohio State sucks. I hate them. But that was Miami beating Ohio State. Old Miss beat Georgia. And that was the one game this whole year that I will say Texas had no reason being on the field with them. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. If we played them 10 times out of 10, we're losing all 10 times. That's how good they were. So that's where I'm kind of sitting here right now, like, wow, that was this gives me a lot to process about Ole Miss being that good. They avenged their one loss on the season. They are now basically undefeated going into this thing. I'm gonna say Ole Miss wins against Miami. But you know what? Miami could easily shut me up because I voted against them last time and they pulled off the victory. I couldn't tell you. So I'm gonna go with Ole Miss winning, and I'm going to go with Dan Lanning. I think the two games in one season is really hard to overcome. Signetti is a good coach, but we're going to finally see my Oregon resources outpace Indiana resources. And that's what's going to, and I think Indiana has to wait 1 or 2 more years before they get their first national championship. But it's coming. It's loading. Signetti's their guy. They have the right formula. They just need that one little bit of luck to come their way, and I think they can win this. I just do not think Heisman winners and national championship winners in the same year are very rare, and I'm going to just bank it on that. It's the reason why, with that statistic, Indiana's just not going to make it. They might make it to the show, but I don't think they don't win the whole thing.
I like it, Kyle. I like it. I'm in the same thought with you. I do think Oregon's going to find a way to get that win. I think talent for talent, they can match up with Indiana. Obviously, the revenge factor, the it's hard to beat a team twice factor. Dan Lanning's a guy that's a maniac, and he's been knocking on the door for a while now. And I think that they break through here. I think Dante Moore's a really good quarterback, and I think they handle Texas Tech pretty easily. And Texas Tech's a really good team, really good defense. And I think that Oregon's defense is legit, and they'll keep Mendoza, neutralized somewhat. And I'll take Oregon to win that. And as far as the Miami Ole Miss game, that's going to be crazy. I think I'm going to lean Miami here. I want to pick Ole Miss because I think Trinidad's like the best quarterback in the playoff right now, and best quarterback usually wins, but call it brand bias or something. I just can't envision Ole Miss in the national championship, even though they look very much like a national championship level team. I just can't envision Hotty Toddy and the Ole Miss Rebels in the national championship on the final Monday of college football season. So I can envision Miami there. The U is back. Carson Beck's been around. He's won big games before. And that D line and O line are legit. That defense is flying around for Miami. I think it's a low scoring, ugly game like it's been for Miami all playoff long. And I think Miami finds a way to punch their ticket, which will be cool. Oregon versus Miami, the national championship, two great brands. And that game would be played in the Miami Hurricanes home stadium in Miami. So that would be a lot of fun to watch. So I got Miami and I got Oregon this weekend.
Hey man, nothing. You know what? All you had to say is defense wins championships, and Miami's defense is real. That is full of NFL talent. I could easily see them neutralizing Ole Miss's offense with that defense. And plus, what better way than to have the convicts who were backed by the porn stars and Abella Danger, Sherry DeVille, and Corey Chase and all them? Because I think Corey Chase actually has a son somewhere associated with the Miami football team. So that's crazy. And then of course we saw them all in College Station just getting memed out when the Aggies were losing. So it'd be fun to watch Miami come in and take on Dan Lanning and basically the Nike test store of Oregon. But this is a really good. Hey, we may have been talking a lot of smack about the committee when the playoffs first started, but magically the teams have made them look pretty smart now because all four of these teams could really go win a national championship now, especially getting the old dogs like Georgia, knocking out the old dogs like Georgia and Ohio State, who have that on their bingo card. With Miami giving up not that many, like I think up only now like 10 points or something like that. That's a very impressive stat. And I could easily see Miami, bring in the U dynasty into the modern age. Because also, who doesn't love a cocaine fueled Mike Irvin with his belt off, smacking jerseys at the end of every game? Who doesn't love watching that? That's just funny stuff. My Twitter has been just absolute comedy gold after their games for these past 3 weeks.
Yeah, he's unhinged on the sideline. He's definitely on some sort of drugs or something. Maybe that's just how he is, but he's hilarious. But all right, man. Well, there you have it. Thank y'all for watching this episode, man. This one ran kind of long, but there's just so much to talk about. I'm gonna post it as soon as I'm done. As soon as I hit stop recording, I'm gonna get it up because it's gonna be obsolete by this time tomorrow, probably in terms of the portal. But that's just the world that we live in right now. So hopefully Texas, hopefully the doom and gloom goes away and we get in a little bit of a heater. But just so many moving parts. But like Kyle said, there's so much talent. There's so much things to like about this team. We got Sark. So we're in a good spot. We're just being a little greedy right now, which we should be if we want to win a national championship. But yeah. So comment what y'all think. Any guys that y'all may want, guys that were sad to leave, and yeah, give us y'all's grade on the season as well. I said C plus. Kyle said B minus. So let us know what y'all think. But yeah, thank y'all for watching, and we'll see y'all in the next one. Hook 'em.
Okay.